So the second main topic today that we're going to talk about is Mortal Kombat 1. Now, recently, obviously Ed Boon's been doing interviews and stuff like that with some content creators as well, not just people with IGN and GameSpot and all that kind of stuff, but with content creators as well. And whenever I go to play pool or whenever I have some time to myself to look stuff up on YouTube or whatever it is, or to read up on stuff, guess what I do? I listen to these interviews and watch them or whatnot, right? If I'm playing pool, I'm obviously just listening. And obviously I've seen the gameplay trailer. First of all, let's just confirm the big elephant in the room, right? It looks absolutely terrific. And one of the things that Ed Boon said was that this time around they had to upgrade engines, right? So they were at Unreal 3 in Mortal Kombat 11, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. And right now they upgraded to, I don't know, whether it was Unreal 4 or Unreal 5, I don't know, but they've upgraded engines, which obviously takes a lot of time, and then there's a lot of things that developers have to learn and all that kind of stuff. I don't know too much of the tech that goes into that, but ultimately it's an endeavor. But the game is going to be overall better for it. And what we've also learned is through the trailer, the gameplay trailer itself, we've also learned a few tidbits about the story that actually confirm the things that I've speculated, some of the things I've speculated in video form, and other things I've actually speculated in non-video form, just kind of thinking about the subject. And let's talk about that real quick. The first thing is that Scorpion and Sub-Zero are brothers. In this timeline, Scorpion and Sub-Zero are officially brothers, and it's really great to see the relationship like this in this form, because they were in the original story, they were enemies for years and all that kind of stuff, and through deception of Quan Chi and everything that he did, right? So, and then they kind of became acquaintances, and then after that they kind of called it a truce, and it's like that's the direction they were heading, right? It was always better to see Scorpion and Sub-Zero working together as opposed to being against each other, right? We've had both. So now it's like, okay, let's make them siblings. So it's really interesting to see that. And I believe Sub-Zero is actually the older of the two, and Scorpion is younger, if I'm not mistaken. They might be twins. I don't know. They sure as hell looked a lot alike when you looked at the original trailer at the reveal. Their body types looked alike, but I think Scorpion is slightly taller than Sub-Zero, unless I got my angles wrong. But there's one more interesting thing that I speculated, and that is that two things, actually. Number one, Melina seems to be not the queen necessarily, but the princess of Edenia. I mean, we don't know if Sindel exists in this timeline yet. She probably does, but we'll see. But she's like either the queen or the princess of Edenia, and Kitana is not. So the roles are reversed. However, there's one more little tidbit that is very important that I speculated, and that is that Melina's teeth is not because she's Tarkatan, or it doesn't seem that she was created by Shang Tsung in this timeline in the way they're telling this story. No, it's more of a fact that it's actually a disease. She has a disease. And it seems like Kitana actually cares about her. She's like, hey, I only want what's best for you. And then Melina basically says, or do you secretly covet my throne? So that basically said it all. So, and then another thing which is great, we're actually getting a Raiden storyline. We're gonna know about Raiden and his about how he came to be. He obviously has his powers of lightning and thunder, but the question is he gonna be a god this time around, or is this or is he actually going to be a god, and this is the way he gets there? Or is he not going to be a god and he just happens to be another one of those Mortal Kombat fighters that just has his powers, and it you kind of get to see where he gets them from or how he uses them and all that kind of stuff. Maybe he becomes a god, you just never know, or he becomes something else, you just never know. But ultimately, there was one little tidbit from the gameplay trailer that was really cool, and that is that he said that he was training, I believe, with Kenshi, and he says, you lack experience, and then Raiden responds with, what I lack in experience, I make up for with heart. So we're going to get to know Raiden in a way that we've never known him before, which for me personally is a really big highlight and a really big deal, because Raiden is actually one of my favorite Mortal Kombat characters of all time. And now that we get very much in depth about the character in terms of how he develops from being who he is currently into what he ends up becoming, which again has yet to be seen, is going to be very interesting. And next up, here's something very interesting as well, especially if you're a 90s fan like myself. So Ed Boon and crew have been trying to get Jean-Claude Van Damme on the game for years, and they gotten really close like 4 or 5 times, and now they finally got him. So Johnny Cage is going to have a Jean-Claude Van Damme skin, but it doesn't stop there. Jean-Claude Van Damme himself is actually going to be doing the voice of Johnny Cage as well. So we're going to get like a full-on Johnny Cage skin of a full-on Jean-Claude Van Damme skin of Johnny Cage, and along with the voice acting as well. So that is going to be cool. And there's also one more that Ed Boon is obviously not ready to announce yet, but Ed Boon hinted that there's one more character like that. But the question is, who is it going to be? You know, which actor is it going to be? We just never know. I don't know, but it's exciting nonetheless. And of course, let's talk about the gameplay. There's a lot of Mortal Kombat 11 DNA in this game, but at the same time, there's even more things that are new. Obviously, the cameo characters, which by the way, Ed Boon did reveal that the cameo characters themselves are actually not going to be, how do I put this? The cameo characters themselves are actually not going to be story related. They're going to have nothing to do with the story itself. The cameo characters that are not a part of the main roster, that don't have anything to do with the story, are just there for gameplay that will enhance everything. So a lot of fans were kind of complaining about Mortal Kombat 11 being slow, like really slow. Well, not really slow, but slower in comparison and more limited. And Ed Boon even said this, and I'm paraphrasing, that they're basically lifting restrictions, right? They're basically lifting restrictions on the gameplay limitations from the last game, and they're kind of using the cameo characters in order to do that. Like you're going to see cameo fatalities. Like it's going to be your main character and then your cameo character doing a fatality, doing these fatal blows and x-rays and stuff. I mean, I think it seems like fatal blows are back. And then obviously with the moves, it's going to be very easily accessible. You just with the touch of a button. I believe it's one of the shoulder buttons, the left shoulder button or the right shoulder button, that you can come in, and you can obviously press anything on the D-pad along with that to specifically assign an attack for that character to do. And there's plenty of them, it seems. And they've also done a little bit of a throwback to where the cameo characters, they've got like their original costumes from the original Mortal Kombat timeline, which is pretty damn cool, especially if you're one of the fans like me that grew up during that time, and you look at Kano's costume, you're like, holy shit. Or when you look at Sonya's costume, it's like, oh my gosh, this is their Mortal Kombat 1 look and costume. But they made them relevant in this game in that form via a way of cameo, which is interesting. So I honestly think that, and there's also a couple of cameo characters that are actually going to be both roster and both cameo. So I think it's going to be to like the most popular ones, the ones that constantly get requested, and the ones that Mortal Kombat can't do without, like for instance your Scorpions and Sub-Zeros. So I believe it's already been revealed that Ed Boon basically said like Sub-Zero, you can have, you know, your regular Sub-Zero like from the main roster, and then he can also be a cameo character, and they can both look very different. And you know, I think that's cool. So you can actually have 2 Sub-Zeros and 2 Scorpions, and you can have a Scorpion and a Sub-Zero, yada yada yada. So that makes it for a very interesting combination. And at the same time, if you are a person that prefers that and only sticks to a couple of characters because you just love those characters regardless of how they play, or because you stick to those characters because of how they play, you can do that. And they've basically made it to where there's no alternate versions of characters anymore in terms of like alternate styles that you choose from. Like everything that you're going to be able to do with the characters is going to be front and center, and it's going to be like right there. So when you look at it from a cameo fighter standpoint, as well as the fact that there's no alternates anymore, restrictions are definitely getting lifted. And I think there's going to be different ways also that they've sped up the game in terms of they're very kind of combo related, and how you maybe dash in and out and how you use that. So they're basically, it's going to be basically, like I said, like kind of like I predicted, like that middle ground between Mortal Kombat 11 and Mortal Kombat X. But at the same time, it's kind of up to the player in terms of what the player is capable of doing. And the fact that they've lifted those restrictions is something that a lot of players that I've seen, according to a couple of content creators that I've seen, they're really very much into that. Like they're legitimately into that, and they're very excited about it, and they actually want to play more so that way they can discover more. I mean, one of my favorite content creators, Maximilian Dude, basically said that himself. Like he wants to play more, and he's also a former competitive fighting game player. Okay, so he's one of the guys that actually knows what the hell he's doing. It's not just because of his content creation status, but this guy actually competed against the best of the best, because he was like a top 1% level player when it comes to fighting games, and many fighting games at that. So this guy knows his shit. So when you get people like that, as well as other members of that specific community, saying that they want to play the game in order to discover more, that is a good sign. Because in the previous game, some other people were like, yeah, I get it. I mean, I've got enough footage. You know, I spent 30 minutes or an hour with the game. I've got enough footage. I get it. I totally get it. But now it's like these guys want to play more to uncover more. And when you give more options to the community, they're going to love you for it. And they're going to discover all sorts of ways to play. And I think that's another reason why they're going to have a beta. So when you have a game that's in depth to that degree, it's like you got to have a beta, because you can't have anything too freaking broken unless everything is broken, right? If everything is broken, then you're good. But at the same time, there's got to be a limit within it, especially since Mortal Kombat now is a game that also has been it's gotten to the realm of the fact that it's a competitive fighter now. It's entered into that, and it started with Mortal Kombat 9, and then obviously in Mortal Kombat X, Mortal Kombat 11. So they've been getting a lot more technical since then. I mean, they started off basic, and they've grown into what they've grown today. So props to NetherRealm for doing that. You know, they've managed to walk that fine line of, yes, our game is accessible, but at the same time, it's very much in depth, and they provide their own flavor to that. So props to them, because it's much more difficult to execute something like that successfully than it is to just think about it, or just to kind of think about the ideas that you can implement and stuff like that. It is very difficult for them to do that. So props to them. And one more thing I want to say before ending this specific topic about Mortal Kombat 1, there is something that I want to mention, and that is that there's something else. I think there's another, I highly speculate that there's going to be another game mode. Now, I don't know what that game mode's going to be. I'm personally wanting a conquest style mode, but at the same time, there's still a possibility that there may be a part of the story mode. However, despite the fact that we've been revealed a decent amount of things as of now, we're going to be getting, like, you know, over the next 6 to 8 weeks or so before, you know, which will be up to a month or so before the game's release, or should I say maybe up to 2 months before the game's release. I think that within these next 2 months, we're going to be given a good amount of information in terms of what exactly is going to be in the game. And quite frankly, they got no choice but to tell us anyway, because it's a selling point. Because at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, it is a business. It really is a business, so they need to promote their product, right? So if there's a whole other game mode that's going to be like immersive, or if they've done something with the story that they haven't announced yet or whatnot, that's going to be even more immersive and make it better than the other iterations of story mode in fighting games that we've ever seen, or more ways to unite the community in some way, shape, or form, like with every single piece of content that the game has to offer, by all means, you can bet your bottom dollar that they're going to announce it. I mean, they've got to. It's like, what does your game have in it? So far, what have we seen? We've seen a reveal trailer, which hints a little bit about the story, and then a short, a gameplay trailer, which again hints a little bit more about the story, and obviously tells a lot about gameplay. But at the same time, does it tell us about all the modes? No. Does it tell us about the currency system? Did it give us details about the currency system other than the fact that there is a currency system? No. Have we seen the crypt? And we know there's going to be a crypt. There's just no way. There's no way that there's not. It's a great concept. It's been a great concept. It's been in the game since Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, and it's something that the fans absolutely love, and it's only been getting better with every iteration. There's just no way that there's not going to be a crypt. So with Mortal Kombat 1, I, for one, am very excited, and it feels very weird for it to be called Mortal Kombat 1. And the reason why I say this is because, well, I actually played the original Mortal Kombat 1, even though it was called Mortal Kombat. But, you know, obviously the title of 1 didn't get added to that game until MK2 came out, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of interesting to call this game Mortal Kombat 1. But for me personally, I'm also excited for it. I'm excited for the story. I'm excited for these characters. I want to see how Raiden's story progresses. I want to see what happens with Mileena and Kitana, as well as the other characters that we have yet to see. We have yet to see a bunch of other characters, and I want to know. Speaking of characters, a couple more things I want to say before we close the second topic here. And number one is that I believe in some way, shape, or form, I'm still holding on to what I said in the previous video about MK1. I believe that every single character that has existed in the Mortal Kombat timeline, at least, let's say optimistically, at least like 90+% of them, like the ones that are truly like that fans have cared about over all these Mortal Kombat generations that we've had and iterations of games, right? I think that they're going to make, at the very least, some will make a bigger appearance, some will make a lesser experience, but they're going to be in the game in some way, shape, or form. I truly and wholeheartedly believe that. And it's going to be very interesting in terms of how that happens and what they're doing with the story mode to, bring it up another step from what we've seen in previous games. So, so with that being said, what are you guys excited for when it comes to Mortal Kombat 1? Is it for the character reveals, the other new modes, all the changes and yet familiar iterations? Like, what specifically are you looking forward to? Because every single time Ed Boon does a new interview about the game, especially since he has so recently, or whenever they officially decide to reveal something, whether it's in their vlog form that they've been doing, or in the form of a promotional trailer of some kind, I'm always hyped about Mortal Kombat. I'm always hyped. And the biggest reason for me to come back to the game is obviously number one, the story mode. And then, of course, give me Conquest. You give me Conquest, I will literally be all over that game like white on rice. Right now, at this stage of my life, I've been playing a lot of first person shooters, obviously, like you kind of see in the background. But back in the day, I always played Mortal Kombat, and fighting games were my bread and butter back in the day, up until, a certain point. But they've never completely left me because I've always loved Mortal Kombat, especially when it comes to the story and everything else that's come with it. Anyway, that concludes the second topic of today's discussion. So I want to know down in the comment section, what do you guys think? What are you most excited for? Let me know. I want to know, and let's get on to topic number 3.